Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your hosts.
Welcome to the Do Good X podcast. My name is Stephen Lewis, and I am a catalyst for positive change in communities and businesses. And for over 2 decades, I've inspired leaders and entrepreneurs to live and work with purpose, with intention, faith, and a commitment to their well-being. And I'm joined here today with my dear colleague, Kimberly. Hey, Kimberly.
Hi, Stephen, and hello to everybody who's tuning in today. My name is Kimberly Danielle, and I am a community builder, a coach, and communication strategist who comes from generations of faith-driven leaders and entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. If you are tuning in with us for the first time today, thank you for joining us. And if you've been here for this new season, welcome back. So in this episode today, we are going to talk about and center on social good. Now, the times that we're living in, we know the times. There's inequality. There is, community divestment in cities and regions across the United States. There's a lot of galvanizing around certain elections that are happening for this reason in different areas. There is erosion of trust in institutions, and these are institutions who have historically served as safety nets for people, but now that's like going away. And there is the environmental degradation, the concern around global warming and climate change and housing insecurity. Like the list can go on and on. Now, I'm not going to be doom and gloom, right? Because on the flip side of this, we also have a lot of founders who are very much interested in creating something that does good, creating something that addresses these challenges that we are facing and that our communities are facing on a regular basis. So they're looking at how can we marry profit with purpose, but centering purpose in order to do good. So this is not only a timely conversation, it is necessary to talk about social good, to talk about the imprint that we have and we will make in our communities, on the world, the legacy that we will have. And this is a conversation that should continue. Because if you are tuning in, likely, Do Good X as some place that you can tune in, because we are very much focused on social good, social entrepreneurship, people who are driven by their faith. So you likely have decided to build something that does good. So the question is, what are you building toward and why? As a social entrepreneur or someone who is doing good in the world, what is the impact? What is the legacy that you will leave behind? And this might be something that you might not see the results of your work in your lifetime. It might be in future generations to come. But have you thought about what is that impact? What is that legacy? Stephen, what do you have to share about this? I know we have conversations about legacy, about social good, about what we will create that will set up, that builds on the shoulders that we stand on, but also creates a foundation for the generations to come.
Yeah, one of the questions that I have as I was thinking, listening to, as you was talking, I was thinking about, for those of you who are listening, the question is, can businesses do anything beyond simply make you money? Do business carry a different, or I should say additional value than just simply generating revenue? And if it can, the question is, to what extent beyond revenue making can your business have a positive impact? Can your business be known for the value, the positive value that it makes within the communities and the constituents and customers that it serves? And if your answer is yes to that, then I think the next question then is, what kind of positive impact do you want your business to make in your communities? And then I would say the next question after that, for how long? Within your lifetime, or do you want to create something that has a lasting legacy even beyond once you exit the business, or if long, if you hold on to the business to, to the end of your life, long after you live? And so again, this is an episode that's really trying to help you think about to what extent businesses carry value beyond just making money to have a positive impact, and what kind of impact do you actually want to have within your particular community or constituents or customers that you work with. And so in that sense, I believe that businesses have the capacity to do much more than just simply make us money. And I think, businesses can be a powerful force for good. And so we want to talk a little bit about that today. So that's what I would offer in this particular conversation, Kimberly, as we move forward.
Yes, look, you all, if you've been listening to us for a while, we like to ask some questions, y'all. We love to ask some questions. But that is because it can really get you thinking and reflecting and looking below the surface to build better, to build more intentionally. And so, even if you don't reflect on all of the questions that we might pose in any of our episodes, just hold on to one or two that resonate with you deeply and really get you thinking about what it is that you need to develop or look into or refine or pivot moving forward. But before we even go a little bit further, I think it's important for us to really define what we mean by social good. Um, I know there's kind of a basic understanding, but also people tend to, develop their own definitions about what that means. So I think for us, there's really four aspects of social good. And the first is that if you are focusing on social good in your business, you are really creating something that leads to all people flourishing, not just some, but all, not just those who are elites, all people, especially those who had really been pushed toward the margins, people who are vulnerable, people who are overlooked, people who are underserved. Your work should really expand what is possible for people and not just improve conditions for those who are already stable in the first place. So here I go to a question. So if you think about this first piece, who specifically flourishes because your business exists? Who specifically flourishes because your business exists? Now, the second aspect of social good for us is around, these businesses are really creating a world with less harm. I talked about so many things going on. And again, I don't want to be doom and gloom. And also, there's a reality of what we're living in right now. And your work as a social entrepreneur is so important, given those realities. You are actively reducing what deteriorates human dignity and sustainable living. So, again, paired with the question here, what harm does your business interrupt? What does it reduce? Or what does it might even remove?
I mean, I think these are good questions, because I think part of the reality is that, harm, and whether it's intentional or unintentional, just it doesn't happen haphazardly, right? And so, part of the question is like, what is the cost for this particular problem to persist? And who actually benefits from this problem not being solved? And to what extent does your solution to the problem create opportunities, financial and also positive impact within your communities? So again, those are like three additional questions, but I think it's really important. Like you have tremendous opportunity, but also responsibility when you create a business. And we believe because, businesses are oftentimes are, drawing on natural resources. They also are putting things out into the environment as a byproduct of their efforts. And I think it's a responsibility to think about the ways in which you are, thinking about these questions that help you be more aware about how you enter into business. As the old adage says, great power requires great responsibility. And so the power to actually and the agency to actually create with your business, jobs, revenue, resources, etc., requires tremendous responsibility. And I think it's important that you be actively aware in how you actually participating, even if we're all complicit in all that, that contributes to what's wrong within our environment and society. We can make better choices about how we participate. And I think that's also equally important as you think about your business as well.
Right, right. I know I mentioned before, Stephen, do you want to chat about one of the other ones that's important to us in defining what social good is for Do Good Acts?
Yeah, I think it's also important to realize that you are creating businesses that serve the well being of communities. And communities are not just surviving, but thriving, economically viable, and inspired. So, what does the community look like after years of your work being embedded in it? Whatever that business may be, if it's a restaurant, to ask that question. If you're in real estate, ask that question. If you are a real estate investor, to ask that question. So, what does the community look like after years of your work being embedded in it? And then the fourth question or point is that you're building something that is restorative. Effective social entrepreneurship addresses the gaps between what is and what should be or what could be. And I think that's really important. So we're talking about the gap between what is and what should be. And should be is very different than what could be, right? Because what you're basically stating is that, this is the way things should be, um, or desirably what we want, what we long for in our respective communities or with our particular customers. Not just simply, well, this is the best we could do with the time and resources and everything. And that's an important question, but we want you to really reach for the stars when you think about the should of a community or your customers or your constituents when you think about your business versus just simply, what is. And that is the gap that we really want you to stretch in when you envision, imagine, and dream about the possibilities of what should be as a result of your work. And I think that's really important because part of that is thinking about, how do you target injustice? How do you think about inequity? How do you address an unmet need at its root? What, again, are the gaps, the breaches, or the injustices in your business or I should say, what are the gaps, the breach, or the injustices that your business specifically is designed to close, to mitigate, or to eliminate altogether?
Yeah, that's really good. As you were talking, I was also thinking about, how important it is to reflect and get clear about these things before we even really build. Not to say if you're already building, you can still do reflection and get clear about these different elements. But I'm thinking about, I think back to a previous episode that we did with Amelia Conrad, and that was focused on social impact and measuring social impact. And we could refer back to that episode in the show notes. That was in a different season. And once you get clear about the the social good that you aim to do, the legacy that you want to create, being mindful of how you measure that to ensure you're building toward that is important. And so here we are at this episode where it gives you kind of this foundational reflection questions and elements to consider in your building of your business and doing social good. And then you can go to that episode to then think about, well, how do I measure that I'm actually creating what I intended to do in the first place? So that came to mind as you were talking.
Yeah, I mean, I think, being in business is not for everybody, but for those who are in business or who want to be an entrepreneur, anybody can make money. But the higher calling is really thinking about how do you not only make money, but how do you actually make a positive impact within your communities, with your customers, and with the environment. And I think that is the real work and the calling of social entrepreneurship. And those are legitimate goals, like, solving a problem, scaling models, achieving sustainability. Those are all worthy and legitimate goals. But having a social good footprint asks us something more when you're talking about social entrepreneurship. So, every year, if you have a vehicle, unless it's electric, you have to go and get an emissions test. And that emission test is basically showing to what extent your vehicle is within parameters, within lowering, um, kind of its emission that negatively impacts the environment. So, oftentimes what we're looking at is kind of, look, what is your kind of emissions footprint or your CO footprint? And so when we think about social good, we're thinking about what is the social good footprint that you actually want to leave? What is the positive impact? And so two elements in the social good footprint focuses on the impact, which is to say, what is the lasting legacy and impact that you want to have on the people and community and the environment as a result of your business? And the second thing are the principles. What are the behaviors, attitudes, values that will inform why and how you're developing your business? From your supply chain to your staffing to your product line to your manufacturing. How do you think about what principles shape and inform those aspects of your business? And just like, again, a carbon footprint, what is the footprint that you will leave from your business that actually does good in the world, that has a positive impact in the world? And now, the questions that we previously asked may have gotten you thinking about this. But what does it mean to think about legacy from day one? Before you get traction, before you have a proof of concept, before you get that series investment, to think about, like, because when you build from that place, you can then incorporate and integrate this idea of legacy, particularly the positive impact that you want from in the very kind of roots in the DNA of the actual business that you're forming. So those are some of the things that I will offer. What would you share, Kimberly? Maybe you have a story that you might want to bring.
Just emphasizing what you shared, legacy isn't something that's necessarily built at the end. It's really built with every decision that we make along the way, because we know that ultimately whatever this is the legacy that we want to create. And so let that guide your decisions. Let that guide how you build and what you build, the values that you have, and the intention you put into it. The second element that I know we've talked a bit about impact, but just to get a little bit more into principles, I know you mentioned principles, and they are such an important element of the social good footprint. And like you've shared, it really guides our behaviors, our values, our attitudes. And as you are building and creating and growing, what values are non-negotiable for you because of the legacy you want to create, because of the people that you serve, because of the people's lives that you want to change, because of the environment that you might want to make better for all of us. And how do you consistently integrate that in what it is that you do? Sometimes it can be really helpful to share like practical, concrete examples of what this exactly looks like, because sometimes it can be, a little conceptual, but not necessarily putting feet on the ground. And so here are some examples of what principles might look like in practice. So there's an organization on the West Coast called Homeboy Industries. It's an LA-based reentry organization founded by Father Greg Boyle, and it provides jobs, training, and support to formerly incarcerated people and gang-involved individuals. It operates on the principle that nothing stops a bullet like a job. And so it operates on that principle because underneath that is this real commitment that the organization and its founder, really embody, which is that, to help heal people and give them, you can really help heal people and give them a reason to choose a different life. And in their instance, it's offering a job. It can change the course of someone's life for good. And if you know the organization, you see that has happened time and time and time again. And if you don't know the organization, I encourage you to look it up as a great example of a social good entity that is really, really making a positive impact. Or maybe you look at a more larger kind of commercialized brand like Patagonia, but still they're focused on social good, outdoor apparel company. And they consistently held the principle that environmental responsibility takes precedence over growth targets. Now, this is not their only principle, but this is just one I'm mentioning. And you might have seen this in their Don't Buy This Jacket campaign, which was pushing against overconsumption, which is what really happens in America and then yields a lot of issues with our environment and how things are disposed of and just so many different things. And they push out this principle and they held this even at their own expense because they can ultimately make money, but they're saying, look, don't buy this. And then the last example I'll give is one local to Stephen and myself because we're in the Atlanta area. And it's this organization called Goodr. And it's a sustainability company that uses technology to redirect surplus food from businesses to people experiencing food insecurity. And it was founded by Jasmine Crowe. I think she's since gotten married. I don't recall her married last name. But when she started the company, she was Jasmine Crowe. And what looks like a logistics company on the surface is actually rooted in the principle that hunger is not a scarcity problem, but is actually a distribution problem. And that there's a solution that already exists. It's just being wasted. And so I give these examples just to really kind of prime the pump of your thinking about what this looks like for you, what this looks like for your business, no matter what type of business that you have. If you're focused on social good, there's some principle or some principles that are driving you to create the good that we long to see. So what is it? What principles ground and guide your work?
Yeah, those are all really good. And I think, what I would say, Kimberly, is that for our listeners, if you think that you cannot do good and make money, these are three examples that fly in the face of that kind of, sentiment. And there are others, Ben and Jerry, Warby Parker. Like there are all these organizations that are trying to do good and have a positive impact and are also demonstrating that, that you can actually generate an income and a livelihood and all those types of things as well. And oftentimes the gap between whether or not you can actually do this type of work versus just be an entrepreneur is your imagination. And I think part of what we suffer in our country is just an impoverished imagination about what we could actually be doing with our time, energy, and efforts to actually um, make a living, but also to do good and to put good back out into the world. So, if you were simply to reflect on two questions based on our conversation today, I would encourage you to consider these. What's the legacy that you want to leave behind because of your business? And the second one is, what one or two principles will inform how you develop and operate your business? So, those are two questions for you. And, if you're driving, you can come back to this episode and jot them down and take some time to listen. If you're listening to the episode now, you can pause and write and reflect and just allow these questions to kind of mull around in your mind and in your thoughts today as you think about and move about your day as you build your business. Kimberly, what would you say?
Oh, yeah. I don't have much more to add other than to say if you are focused on social good in your business and your intention is to make a positive impact on people's lives and in the environment, we need you. We really do. And so I just encourage you to keep building, keep creating, keep growing, keep scaling, whatever phase you are in your business. Keep doing good. Again, because we need you. And so when you hit a wall and you have some challenges, go back to the legacy that you want to create. Go back to the impact that you've already made and your intended impact that you hope to make as inspiration for your journey.
If these questions are sparking something for you and you want to go deeper with a community of founders who are asking similar questions, we love to have you at our Do Good X Mastermind Retreat in Atlanta, October 1st through the 3rd. So come and build alongside with people who take both the work and their why seriously. So to find out more about this particular retreat, go to Do Good X Mastermind Retreat.
Thank you, as always, for joining us. And until next time, keep building, be well, and do good.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.